Welcome to Sacked Added Time with me, Neil Ashton, still here in the owner's box at Crisis Club FC. We just had John Cross in, really good friend of mine. And Crossy is one of those people who was super supportive of this show. He was there right from the beginning, talked him through the concept, talked to him about what I wanted to do. And he was one of the people in the inner circle, if you like, who encouraged me to do it. He was a great advocate and said, push you, you've got to do it. When's it coming? And we finally went and did it with the Dave Bassett show a few weeks ago. So chapeau to Crossy for pushing me over the edge. And maybe sometimes I think about pushing me over the ledge. But Crossy's one of the people responsible for this show. Hope you're enjoying it. Great to talk to him about the European Super League. It's something we both lived through. Crossy as a journalist and myself in my new role, or my role at the time, working in PR for one of the biggest clubs in this country. Crossy was excellent on the subject. It was amazing to listen to him talk about not only was he did feel responsibility, but more of responsibility to fans of clubs, not only in the Premier League, but also outside the top division as well, because some of those clubs who believe and dream, they're aspirational, that one day they think they can get into the Premier League and play against the big boys on a regular basis, that had the European Super League taken shape, and if it actually happened and clubs had left the Premier League, or the Premier League had been a shell of its former self, then there's perhaps some of those dreams of, you know, some of the great names in English football who are playing lower league who are playing lower down the divisions, we just never have had that opportunity again. So it's great to hear from Crossy. Huge, amazing passion, amazing enthusiasm, and this will to force that over the line with a lot of his other colleagues, and it's great that he felt this responsibility to English football to make sure that the Super League didn't happen for all the reasons and all the valid reasons that he gave on the show. Also, it's great to listen to him talk about Arsene Wenger and Arsenal. He wrote the biography, The Inside Story of Arsenal under Arsene Wenger. Crossy had covered Arsenal for so many years, certainly under Arsene Wenger on a day-to-day basis, got to know the man, got to know the character, the humorous side, the colourful side, but also this extraordinary will to win and this incredible team that Arsene Wenger built and rebuilt. And what I found most compelling when Crossy was talking was not necessarily the great teams, because it's very easy to remember the great teams that he had. The Invincibles 04 Champions League final team that played against Barcelona 06 and could have gone on to win that had it not been for Belletti's winner. But actually the financial constraints later on in Arsene's career, which I think doesn't really get remembered. Certainly, maybe in the Arsenal bubble it does, but I think outside of it, I don't think many people really think of that when they think of the final few years of Arsene Wenger's reign. I think they just think of it as a team that was in decay and in decline. But when Crossy talked about and articulated about the reasons why, suddenly his body of work in the second half of the Arsene Wenger reign at Arsenal becomes much clearer. So really good insight. I know Crossy loves a bit of nostalgia and he loves talking about Arsene Wenger, and I don't think there's another journalist walking the earth who knows as much about Arsenal and Arsene Wenger as John Cross. Okay, if you're enjoying the show, please rate, review, like it, share on your WhatsApp groups, tell people about the show. We're really enjoying the series so far. We've got many more guests lined up. You can also join our growing membership scheme, our Patreon, which is sacked_the show. We hope you can join us as well for future episodes. Okay, questions from listeners about the Gus Poyet episode. Gus's views on sporting directors went viral on TikTok. They really did. Do you think Gus could work with one at his next club? That's Big Dave in Clapham. Gus definitely could. I think that it was a classic tension that Gus talked about between sporting director and head coach stroke manager. I think there has to be, for Gus, I think there has to be clear, roles have to be clearly defined way of playing style, expectations. And I think that if everybody agrees with that, and there's a collaborative effort and a collaborative spirit, then yes, I do think Gus can work with sporting directors. It's also in the modern world, and he has worked with sporting directors, but he also made the point on the show that the power in the modern game appears to be with the sporting director. And I feel that's a bit of a shame, because his view is that the sporting director is bringing the players in. They're setting the coaching style, and all you're doing is coaching them. So there should be more responsibility with the sporting director. I just feel that perhaps should be evened out a little bit, and perhaps manager and sporting director should share the blame when results don't, or share responsibility when results aren't going as well, and that if they work together collaboratively for the greater good and for the betterment of the team, then perhaps the team would have a better chance and the club would have a better chance of success. Because the moment you get fissures, friction and division, those relationships become very, very difficult to repair. Number 2, Priya in North London, she says, is Gus Poyet too honest for modern football? Does he cross any lines that managers shouldn't? No, I like his honesty. He can be incredibly direct. I think his personality is, incredible passion for the game. He embraces it. It's his life. He lives, breathes, watches absolutely everything, reads everything. He is stitched into the fabric of football. And that passion and enthusiasm sometimes gets the better of him. But I actually said to him afterwards that when we had a chat after the shows, that would be, if I was fortunate enough to be a player, and obviously was nowhere near that level, but if I was fortunate enough to be a player, that Gus is someone that I would buy into his ideas and philosophy just because of his natural energy, enthusiasm and passion for the sport shines through every time he speaks, and his body language as well is very, very it's intoxicating at times because he's got so much passion for it. Terry Smith asked, did you like Gus? Yeah, I just, for all the reasons that I've just talked about there, I did. Loved his passion, enthusiasm, his knowledge of the game, and also anybody who has left their home country of Uruguay, gone to play in different places in the world, and has adapted, because adaptability is so key, has learned different languages, gone on to be a manager, lived in different countries, sometimes had to leave his family behind who now live in London. I think there's a lot to admire about someone who's gone and done that, and lived in different countries, has adapted, and also been successful with different teams as well. And he's also not only managed club teams, but he's also gone on to manage national teams as well. 4, were you surprised that Gus didn't understand the rivalry between Chelsea and Tottenham when he left as a player? That's Callum Billingham. Not as much, because I think if it's a domestic player, someone who's British, English, that I completely understand that you grow up and you know exactly what that rivalry means. Gus articulated that when he played for Chelsea, they had ambitions to win the Premier League title. They didn't do it, but he definitely had ambitions to do it. And their main rivals at the time were Arsenal, because they were winning titles, and Manchester United, because it was that 2-horse race at the time. That was the big rivalry in English football, or they were dominating the domestic scene in the Premier League, and Chelsea were trying to break into that, and Tottenham, for whatever reason, weren't competing for the Premier League. So yes, the rivalry clearly exists in the way that we know it does, and fans love it. But I think when it's an overseas player, it perhaps it takes them a little bit of time to not make the adjustment, but to understand the competitive nature, the fearsome rivalry that exists between the two teams. But in hindsight, when he looks back, he realises that it was a big move to force through. He could have gone to Liverpool. He wanted to keep his family in London. He decided to stay in London and move to Tottenham. But of course, then you have to prove yourself to another set of supporters. And he'd also forced his way out of Chelsea at the time, asked for a transfer. He'd got his transfer to Tottenham. So from one set of supporters that he left behind Chelsea, who are upset that he forced through a transfer and then went to Tottenham, and then Tottenham supporters that he's then got to convince that he's good enough at the age of 33 with a 3-year contract, that he's worth that gamble. If it was a gamble, I think he still went on to have a decent enough career despite some injuries at White Hart Lane. But yeah, totally understandable for a player who is Uruguayan and understands competitive instincts, local rivalries, derbies, but hasn't grown up around it. So it'll feel a little bit different for him. But he certainly understands it now. Okay, that's it from Sacked Added Time with me, Neil Ashton. Please don't forget to like, rate, review, follow the show in all the usual places. We're on YouTube, of course, we're on Acast, we're on Spotify as well. And you can also join our growing membership at Patreon. You can find us at Sacked_the show. We'll see you next time here on Sacked with me and Neil Ashton.